This conversation is sponsored by MedLabs.
This is what I know. We're all connected to one another, the earth and all her inhabitants. We thrive on these connections, real ones that touch our soul, fill our heart, and invigorate our mind. I have been so fortunate to experience this all my life, meeting extraordinary, ordinary folks who inspire and provoke. My name is Khadija Muhaisen. Welcome to Adventures of the Soul Conversations. My hope is that they will fill your cup as they have filled mine.
If you're unhappy, if you're unsatisfied, if you're unfulfilled, if you have absolutely no awakened self and you're just going through the motions, and you do these 8 hours and go home, your lack of happiness will eventually manifest through bad physical health.
Yes.
Right, and your immunity will drop. People seem happier, more able to figure out some work-life balance, or at least understanding that the energy that they bring to the workplace and the energy they bring at home don't have to be two separate things.
They're one and the same.
They're one and the same.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted everyone to feel that they were inspired, or that this company was a source of inspiration and they were part of that inspiration. And this brings me to the R. So the C for community in the south, the A for awakening conscious in the east, and then the R is research-based innovation for knowledge sharing. So we feel as a science company, we have a responsibility to share knowledge. I think 400 people with all their years of experience, that's maybe thousands of years of experience. We call it co-creation. So Tanweer is a movement that's coming out of the Ahliya School for Girls and Bishops.
Awakening.
Which is
enlightenment?
Yeah,
maybe
they're actually thinking a kind of Arab enlightenment. So all the schools, all our corporations are just, as we said, taking the Western model and applying. And we're forgetting what amazing information we have in our roots and in our history. So that's kind of bringing that back. The C doesn't work without the A, without the R, without the E, without the big I in the middle of the integral self. Certainly the engagement has increased with our staff across the board. Staff retention certainly has been tangible through HR. So we've tried to delve into the mind-body connection with healing. So we're here to build communities and we're here to nurture a healthy society. And so they sort of look at each other like, is this marketing? And so the whole way they approach work, they approach their day-to-day life in the work environment, we refer to each other as family members in the whole company. And the way they treat patients is completely different because it's coming from a fulfilled self as opposed to just a... So daycare support doesn't really apply to us because, if we were all in one gigantic building, by the way,
it makes sense.
70 to 75% of our staff are female. We are one of the most female-centric entities in the country. And that's wonderful, but it comes with its challenges. So if we were in one place,
it makes sense.
It makes sense to have, I really love this movement of Sadaqa where they making sure the law is implemented to have daycare in facilities for women in companies over 15, or I can't remember the size. There has to be
12, I think.
12, yeah, women,
but it's
with
just
children.
passed it to law.
Yeah.
But actually, funnily enough, yesterday I had a meeting with a very, outwardly really liberal, open. So they were complaining that female bosses were actually harsher on each other, and
you hear that.
You hear that a lot.
But
yes.
we haven't heard that in our environment.
I don't think, because I think you're really invested in what you're doing versus I'm only concerned with the looks and what it looks like on paper and on camera. And
absolutely. Yeah. But we definitely try to be as flexible as possible with working moms and various life conditions. But it's we have to also stick to labor law, and we try to be as fair and as flexible and open as possible. What matters to us more is not the pedantics of all of that. It's just that, okay, if you're coming to do your 8 hours or 9 hours or 7 hours or whatever, that you're doing it willingly, happily, etc. And if you really need time, there's also, because the community internally has become so much more
supportive as well. Yes.
They sort of cover for each other more. There's more, and as I said, so from the measures you were asking about, the staff retention is better. Overall, customer complaints have dropped. So sort of this attitude, and I was saying earlier, it's a work in progress.
Of course, I was just actually coming to ask you. Let's talk about the reality of the internal reality and also the external reality in terms of having to deal with the healthcare sector that is not in the best state and condition. And I think unless we start to acknowledge the issues that sometimes we're a little bit paranoid about, maybe just weary about mentioning. I think unless we acknowledge this and we draw attention to that, I don't think anything is going to happen about it. So internally and externally, if you can just tell me the reality of what you face, because everything you're talking about applies to every other sector, including,
So internally, as I said, it's a work in progress. You're not going to walk into any of our branches and and find La La Land. We are in a difficult part of the world. We're in a difficult country in terms of, people tend to be...
Growing pains?
Growing pains.
Do you call this growing pains, or do you call it stagnation?
Neither. I think there's an underlying concern about just where we are geopolitically.
And we have to mention that you have offices in Palestine, you have offices in
labs,
Iraq.
Exactly. And we have, so people are negative in Jordan, right? I mean, we have this terrible reputation. I don't necessarily believe it's true. I think it's very outward, and if you just dig slightly below the surface,
ask about purpose, things will change.
Yeah, exactly. So, but going back, you're not going to walk in and find everybody joyful, but you should hopefully find it better than it was 5 years ago. And it's a work in progress, and we hopefully will bring more and more people on board. Externally, what we find, sadly, and which we experienced in other countries more than Jordan before, and now it's increasing, is medical ethics, right? So we're very, very centered, as one of our core beliefs and one of our topics in care circles is ethics, right? So the ethics we have... Integrity we have between each other, but also the ethics with patients, patient rights, what are our patients' rights, and the ethics with the way we deal with the community, the medical community at large. And yes, certainly it's a taboo subject and everybody gets very upset about this to mention it, but it has to be pointed out that more and more the trend seems to be that some doctors, with all respect to all doctors, want a kickback from medical entities like labs, radiology, pharma, etc. And we find that is the epitome of bad ethics, because
where does that leave the individual?
It exactly works against a patient's rights.
Yes.
Because if I'm coming in and I need 5 tests and the doctor is going to request 7 or 10 instead because he'll get a bigger percentage as a kickback, but I'm paying out of pocket as a patient, or even if it's the insurance company, it's just unethical. It's wrong. I mean, we've heard.
And you refuse to be part of this.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we've had doctors where we visit them and they've said, to our face, well, what do I get out of it? And you get an accurate result. I mean, let's not forget, in our sector, the doctor's diagnosis and decision for treatment is based about 70 to 80% on lab results. So,
which takes us back to the idea that very soon doctors are not going to really be needed.
Right. So really they should want the most accurate, high quality results. And there are many excellent labs out there, not just MedLabs, but we definitely, our core ethos has always been quality. So we have all the top international accreditations. We work tirelessly to ingrain in our staff this sense of living quality. Yeah, it's part of that northern... Embodying it. Yeah. It's like brushing your teeth. It has to be second nature. And why? Not because there's a policy that says, or there's a camera, or there's an audit. Because you care about the patient who's going to get this result. And because you are a responsible human being who has empathy and wants to make sure that this patient is taken care of. And so coming from that, we say to these doctors and others, like, this is going exactly the opposite of care. If you don't care about your patient, then ask for a kickback. But if you care, you really just want an accurate result. And sadly, most of these very doctor types who require or request these kickbacks will come to MedLabs for their own treatment. So it's kind of they trust.
So Zeina, do you think, again, going back to the idea of wholeness and this integral approach, it's not just the one thing, because sometimes I just focus on, I'm really obsessed with nourishment and nutrition. I always think, oh, this is the magic pill, or this is the magic pill. But really, it's about everything is a magic. Everything is an integral, important part
Absolutely.
of the
Whole.
operation of the formula. If I were to ask you to give me those everythings, what would they be for you? What are the elements that make up the perfect whole in your thinking, without compartmentalizing anything? If I were just to ask Zeina.
Okay, so I think a balance, and as you know, we're actually writing a separate book on this. The
You're
balance,
writing? Oh, yes.
you know,
Okay,
the
yeah.
empowering women through healthy living. For me, a balance, personally, and I think.
So tell us about the book, actually, now that you've people need to know about the book.
We've worked with a fantastic company called 7 Circles, run by a very inspirational young lady, Zeina Sahyoun, and she created a series of books under the empowering through kind of theme. So empowering women through cooking was the first one that came out, and we played a part in that as MedLabs and putting all the nutritional values and nutritional icons for recipes. I wrote the foreword, and we really loved the concept of getting women to write from the heart and these stories, because storytelling is a very big part of community building. And then out of that,
I think there's something that I heard recently. There's every human being is a walking book.
Yeah. We all have a story, and I'm one of these people who's always believed since I was tiny that everybody's interesting.
Yes.
Everybody's interesting.
You just need to ask. Okay, go ahead.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we came out of that, and I thought, okay, how about we do an empowering women through healthy living? So back to my values. I believe that if you find your recipe for a balance between mind, body, and soul, and in that, you know, out of that kind of on MedLabs came the I'm healthy, I'm happy, I'm optimistic. Out of that, or connected to that, is this care approach and integral self. But I think if you find this balance, and in our communication, we never just focus on lab tests. We focus on, let's say, preventive medicine and healthy and well-being, health and well-being. And we always touch on the importance of nutrition, of movement, of mental health, of spiritual, emotional health. It's also holistic. And the lab and the doctors, and that's just one part.
So you said that you're training your staff as well to offer a holistic advice as well. So when I get my lab results, if there's issues with my cholesterol or uric acid, what is the ideal situation, and is that
so the ideal situation would be that they would maybe include a pamphlet that we have all about cholesterol, and ways or modes of living that can help. You could sit with the lab director, who could then maybe direct you to a nutritionist we work with, or a gym we work with, and sort of to give you a more well-rounded.
So you are going the extra mile.
We are trying to go the extra mile.
Are you trying to cover for the gaps in the medical, like in what doctors are offering?
Not specifically, or not directly that way, but we're trying to definitely make people more aware that it's not really just like that. There's much more to it, and taking from your immunity is linked to your mental well-being and your happiness, and it's just a huge area to get people to think beyond just medicating. I'm personally really against medicating, or not against it, but I feel like you medicate when you really need to. It shouldn't be the first resort. And we're actually working on a WHO project right now with the Ministry of Health on increasing awareness about the huge problem of AMR, which is antibiotic resistance by microbes, right? So we've taken so many antibiotics unnecessarily that the germs have become immune to them. And that's a huge issue in the medical field. So really, maybe 7, 8 times out of 10, you can solve your health problem, at least partly, through other non-medication methods.
And again, going back to this whole idea, everything is integrated, because I had a discussion with a guest about rheumatoid arthritis, and we started talking about the microbiome. And the issue with antibiotics is not that we're encouraging the rise of antibiotic resistant bacteria. What is happening is that we have destroyed the microbiome, which is resulting in other conditions.
Exactly.
The thing is, I'm sure you've heard this, nobody calls it the health sector anymore, they call it the disease sector, because as we advance, we're getting sicker and sicker. And maybe we're getting sicker longer because we live longer, but the quality of life, I don't necessarily believe is improving.
I agree. Read a book called Selling Sickness, and you really avoid
it's business. Going back to this idea that the economics and politics dictate where we're going versus human consciousness.
And our ethos of humanity needs to be returned.
What a beautiful going back to where we started. So your components again. So that's I have a full. What would they be? What is your salad made of? What do you do on a daily basis that ensures you work on this balance?
Me personally?
Yeah, you personally.
So
Going back to the individual, because you're
Absolutely.
you're a reflection of me and everything around us.
I think I would narrow it down to that I'm good enough, right? That,
Yes.
that we are doing the best that we're doing, that we are in our core, good and sound and at peace with ourselves. That's very important.
So what do you do to get there?
So-
What do you do in your, give me a day where you address the balance of this? What is your day like?
Well, first, I think self-awareness is very important.
Yes.
To be aware that, I'm feeling guilty right now. Why am I
Yes.
feeling guilty?
Yes.
Do I feel like I didn't spend enough time at work, or I didn't spend enough time with my kids, or is it? And then to say, stop and recognize that you don't have to have that feeling of guilt, and to reflect. I think reflection is something I do
Yes.
quite often. To stop and think and to take things in. Breathing
Yes.
is, more than anyone, is a medicine in itself.
You meditate.
I
remember
meditate.
from our conversation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Recently took up a wonderful yoga class.
Really?
Really. I exercise, so my day is crazy busy, but I realized a few years ago, that unless I'm healthy in mind, body, and spirit, right, everything else is going to fall apart. So to be a good mom, to be good at work, to be good with myself, I need to. It's okay. I don't have to feel guilty about taking 2 hours a week to work out or an hour
for
to do
your
yoga.
self-care.
Yeah.
So can I ask you, is this realization, because I think we'll just have to wrap up, did it come simultaneously as you were implementing
The care.
the care at work, or was this before? and you were a push?
Personally, I had it before,
Okay.
but then I kind of
It's all
lost it.
yes.
Not lost it, it's always there, but stop thinking about it. You just get into the routine of life and the
Kind of
rat
get
race,
drowned
and then you
by
drown.
yeah.
Work and deadlines
Yeah.
and kids, and then this journey kind of made us reawaken all of that. So all this that I used to do.
A success story. When I asked you, do you have personal success stories? I think
Yeah,
you are.
Maybe I am, and
Personally,
others who work with
and you
me
should
are
encourage it.
as well.
And these are stories that should
Yeah.
thank you for sharing this.
Yeah.
And these are stories that I think I would imagine your colleagues at work would love
I
to
think
hear
what we
personally.
want to do in the next year or so is also get more stories like mine out of our staff
Exactly.
to see where they are
and document them.
and document them. And so I came out for me as well is a whole concept, which is a whole other book on conscious parenting, which is amazing. It's another discussion for another day.
We will. We'll talk about it.
And that's amazing. And the final thing I wanted to say, back to what are you doing to let people know,
Yeah.
is that hopefully in the next year to 2 years, we want to create an academy.
Yeah.
Academy that comes out of MedLabs, not necessarily called MedLabs, that allows people to come and learn about this whole integral journey for themselves, for their community, for their organizations, and live this wonderful journey that we got to live and that we continue to live in MedLabs. Because people have been coming and saying, there's something different in your spirit at MedLabs.
Teach us.
Teach us. And
It's awesome.
whether you're medical or non-medical, you can come and learn about that.
Well, I'll be there for sure. Thank
We
you
would
so
love
much,
to have you.
Zeina. That
Thank
was
you.
awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ram.